Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Hi folks, Cesar here with you. Thanks for joining us this evening. We have a pretty intense and serious show. I wanted to get this out to you for a while, and we've got some special guests in the studio. There's an issue in the area, and I admittedly didn't know a lot about it. It's human trafficking. And it's quite frankly a very sad issue that has yet to see the light that it needs to address it, fix it, and prevent it from going forward. So with me in the studio, I've got a couple guests, but the first one I want to introduce you to is Kay Duffield. She is the Executive Director for the Northern Virginia Human Trafficking Initiative. That's right. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And again, I totally embarrassed that I didn't know the extent of what this problem was like in our area, but it's a huge problem, correct?
It is. It's a huge problem, and don't feel bad. I started anti-trafficking work in Chiang Mai, Thailand in 2011. Honestly, when I came back, had no idea that it was happening in my own community, right here in Northern Virginia.
So let's define the problem and then how big it is.
Okay.
And then we'll get into some of the other issues in the next segment. But
sure.
How big is this problem? What kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Well, I can tell you that officials have shared that human trafficking cases have been in every high school in Fairfax County and some middle schools. So we are talking about with teenagers that this is a problem that we need to be aware of as a community.
So does this hit all households? Is it fosters? Is it runaway? What's the sort of segment that's being affected here? Right.
So we know that traffickers, they watch where a person is vulnerable and they attack them in those vulnerabilities. So of course foster children, runaways are of course vulnerable. But we know that teens today, being on social media, opens them up to traffickers in a way that it never has before. I mean, a typical scenario is a teenage girl who's friended by someone that she doesn't know, who posts a pretty picture, and she thinks, oh, this boy's interested in me. Ends up meeting him, and he plays pseudo boyfriend with her for as long as it takes and traps her into trafficking and her selling her body for profit.
So at what point do these victims lose the support group or contact with people that may be able to help them or are there to help them?
And see, that's so important because that's one of the red flags that as parents, as community members, as school teachers, whoever, church members, if that teenager has just even a slightly older boyfriend who's beginning to isolate her away from her friends and family, if she's having phone calls, it's very secretive. They like to brand their victims, so tattoos with names, money symbols, gang signs, things like that are all red flags that we really need to pay attention to.
Oh my gosh. I'm overwhelmed with this. It's pretty intense. What are some of the signs that people that have maybe thought about, gee, I may have seen that, or I wasn't sure about that. What can those people look for and then do? What's sort of a call that they can make there?
Right. I would say, if it's a professional that maybe works at a hospital or in a doctor's office or something, one big thing is if a patient comes in, they don't have their ID on them. We just had a young lady. She's a U.S. citizen, but her driver's license was taken away from her. Things like that. If they seem very quiet, if they're with a person who's very controlling, won't let them answer questions about themselves, that's a red flag to pay attention to. Because if they have a story that doesn't add up, because what happens is the trafficker tries to give them a different identity. They will be given a different name to use. They will be given a story in which to tell if they're picked up by law enforcement, if they have to go in the emergency room because they've been beaten. They have this false story to tell that many times just doesn't make sense.
So we identify, and for the folks back home, we'll put this contact information up here, and I'll ask the folks in the studio to put up the drop center contact information. Tell me about that a little bit, and let's talk about where people might be able to go if they currently are or know of. Get some help. Yeah, 2 years ago, we were told by law enforcement that there really wasn't any place locally that was equipped to really assess and provide the needs for these human trafficking victims. And so we have been providing them services for the last 2 years, but we have just, as of October 24th, opened a drop-in center specifically for survivors where they can come. It's a safe place. It's a safe facility. They can come just as they are. We won't judge them. And then we'll do a full assessment of needs. What is it they need? We have clothing we can give them, food, but then also get them set up for medical care. Many of them need medical care right away. And dental care, therapy, long-term services is what we're about. And then we have fun classes. We have a survivor that's interested in playing the guitar, and so for the first time, she's going to be able to take guitar lessons. So this is the nonprofit organization, correct? Exactly. So you need resources, you need funds, you need volunteers, and all of the above, right? All of the above. We function mostly on volunteers, and so if anyone wants to come and volunteer in our drop-in center to work with survivors, they will have to go through a background check, of course. We work with victims of crime, but we need volunteers. We need people to teach classes to our survivors. If there's something that they would enjoy teaching, skill set that they would enjoy, just being able to provide at our drop-in center. And then we need all kinds of donations, financial, but then also fill the needs at the drop-in center. What's the website? Oh, I see it there. It was just on there. It's novahti.com. Okay, it's a .com. Yes. And the phone number, folks, put it back up there, studio folks. People can call now or check the website. Yes. And get all the information they need for either referencing someone or sending information or helping, donating, and volunteering. Absolutely. If somebody wants to volunteer, the first step is to go on our website. There is a web form to fill out. But if there's a survivor out there, a victim that is waiting just for someone to be able to help them, I encourage them to call. We want to help. Anything that they need, we can provide. So these people won't be alone. They won't be left. That's right. And what are some of the things you're working towards next year that are sort of like the priorities? Yeah, so one of the biggest gap actually for survivors is housing, transitional housing. So we can put them in a shelter for 30 to 60 days, and then what? Many of the survivors actually end up going back to the life because the housing problem is too big for them to face alone. And so what we would like to do, our board has decided to move into transitional housing, to provide a survivor housing community in which we can help provide them with a small house, but also be there nearby to help them learn how to manage the house. And many of them have children, and so they'll be able to be reunited with the children. Are you working with the local municipalities, like the county or the state? Absolutely. We have to, because it's going to take all of us. This is a tremendous problem, and these victims go through so much trauma that this is a long journey they have ahead of them. Is it something that elected officials are embracing, or is it something they're not quite understanding? I mean, you need certainly the political clout behind these
Right.
initiatives. So are you working with any of the local officials? I mean, we just had an election here in Virginia.
Right.
So what are local officials, elected officials doing or not doing that might be able to help more or less?
Yeah, you know, I think we are making some strides. I mean, the good thing is we did have some laws that went into effect July of 2015 for the first time. Virginia actually has on the books human trafficking laws that specify, you know, what sex trafficking is. And so we are making some positive steps.
Anything you'd like to see initiated or improved upon from a legal perspective?
Well, sex trafficking, I think that we've come a long way. I still think that we need to do that for the labor trafficking victims as well.
What's the punishment for people that are caught convicted? What's the typical?
That typically depends on whether they are prosecuted locally or federally. I know that one case that we had, the minor was trafficked from 14 to 16, and her trafficker was sent away for 35 years. So,
Not long enough.
yeah.
In terms of, I just know from a resource perspective, how are you reaching people? How are you sort of targeting or how are you sending out the message what's needed? Because I know there's probably a lot of people that, like myself, want to help but just don't know about this.
Right, and thankfully to your show, this will help. I mean, we try to have awareness events, so I encourage people to reach out to their church, if they're part of a community organization, Rotary Club, Lions Club, different things like that. Awareness events are important, and so we like to try to do that, just to spread the word, but also get volunteers and donations as well.
Okay, and again, just there's no standard profile on this, but statistically, you know, where are these events happening, and you know, who's the perpetrator in most cases?
Who's the perpetrator as far as the trafficker?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we're mostly obviously seeing men as traffickers. I would say we've seen trafficking taking place in every part of Northern Virginia.
Okay.
We had one client that said that she was taken to the richest parts of
Let me stop you there. We'll be right
Sure.
back with the next segment.
Hi! You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
Hey, Gabby, how you doing? How's the play date and sleepover?
Dad, it was great.
Awesome. Okay, I'm on my way. Hey, guys, what are you doing?
We're going swimming! We're going biking! Yeah!
I'll see you in a little bit, guys. I love you.
Hi, babe. How was school today?
Hi, Dad. It was great.
Okay, honey. I'll be home soon. Remember, you're never too far away from your kids to be a dad. Reach out and take a second to check in, because sometimes the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
we're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar back with you. Appreciate you coming back for a second segment. This is going to be a pretty intense segment for me. Joining our original guest, Kay Duffield, the Northern Virginia, the Executive Director of the Human Trafficking Initiative, is Barbara Amaya. She is a human trafficking survivor. She's agreed to come on the show and talk to us about her story. Barbara, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me here.
I want to make this your voice. I want the people to kind of hear what you went through. I want them to understand what it took for you to get out and possibly help others that may be targeted or currently in this situation.
Okay. I was originally from Fairfax, Virginia. And I always like to share that with people because I think often people believe that there's some stereotypical image of a victim of human trafficking. Yeah. And there really isn't. You know, human trafficking is about supply and demand, right? And it's about vulnerabilities being preyed upon. So I was 12 years old when I left my Virginia home. And I always repeat that. I was barely 12 years old. My birthday was July 10th, so I barely was 12. I ran away from my home. And you know, I was already vulnerable because I was a child. Then I was even more vulnerable because I ran away from home. That's what traffickers look for, vulnerabilities. Whether it's a 12-year-old runaway who's sex trafficked, or it's a 35-year-old man who's starving and he wants to feed his family, and he gets trafficked for labor purposes. It's all about vulnerabilities, being preyed upon.
So you were from this area.
Yeah.
Did you run away from the area or within the area?
I ran away to Washington, D.C. Okay. And I ran away many times the first few months. And I ran away from my home because I was being abused and I was experiencing things that no child ever should. But you know, I hesitate to share that because I don't want people to think it's only because, you know, only victims of abuse get trafficked. That's not true. You know, like I just said, it's about vulnerabilities being preyed upon. But for me, in my case, it was because of that, and I ran away. And I'd go to nearby D.C., and eventually I came under the control of traffickers who, I say I was a walking target. You know, I was already kind of so needy because I wanted someone to listen to me. I'd experienced this trauma in my home. I was, you know, so young, and I really just wanted, you know, love, attention, all the things that every child needs. And traffickers have figured out how to act like they're supplying that. They're not, obviously, in a criminal way, right? There's hundreds of thousands of latchkey children walking to school alone, coming home alone, and they could be preyed upon right in their own home on the internet, right? The people that originally came in contact with me sold me to a trafficker from New York City, and I saw the money exchanging hands. I knew exactly what happened when it happened, you know. And he drove me up to New York, and everything just got worse. And I ended up being trafficked for over a decade in the streets of New York, from the age of 12 to 21 or 22. Whenever I say that, I speak across the country today. Whenever I say that I was trafficked for over a decade, people often ask, how's that possible? Why don't you just leave? Why don't they, the victims, just leave? I don't understand that. There were no metal chains in place, were there? No, there weren't, but there were mental chains in place, right? Traffickers are master, I don't want to give them positive attributes, but they're master manipulators and exploiters. And they know how to turn a human being into a commodity, right? And so he began to put that in place, that trauma bond, Stockholm Syndrome thing in place the first minute I met him. You know?
What would you say to potentially parents or friends or cousins or someone to look for the signs, you know, that maybe are most prevalent?
I wish that there was, you know, really clear, like, you know, there's no red letter T on the forehead of victims, trafficking victim. And some of these signs overlap each other in other forms of trauma, right? But I think especially if a parent sees their child becoming more and more isolated, You know, there are victims today that are being trafficked, and they're still living at home.
Yeah.
Wow.
Incredibly.
Really?
So, you know, if you think something's wrong, it probably is. If your child's exhibiting behavior that's, you know, I know all teenagers want to kind of push the limits, but, you know, maybe this child is acting out in ways that they never did before. Perhaps they have tech devices they never had. There's money around that they never, you know, they're being isolated. They're, you know, if a young girl has a friend and she notices her friend talking about this person that's trying to make her do these things that she really feels aren't right, like have sex with men that she doesn't know or whatever, you know, then that's not, that's something's wrong, and somebody needs to tell a school counselor. Nobody's going to walk into, a victim's not going to walk into a police station and say, hi, I'm a victim of human trafficking. It doesn't work like that. But if someone, whether it's a parent or a friend or a school counselor, feels like something is wrong, then it probably is wrong. Something probably is. And it takes so much time. You asked me originally, like, how did I get out of that life? It was over a decade, and it took me, by the time I left New York, I was heavily addicted to heroin, 5'9", 99 pounds. And I walked into a drug, like, rehab clinic place, and the counselor, well, no, I take that back. The intake person there, all she was supposed to do was intake, like name, address. She went above and beyond her scope of work. For whatever reason, she treated me like a human being. She looked me in the face, and she gave me eye contact. And I felt like I mattered, like I wasn't just a client to her. And I felt like I really mattered, and she talked to me like a person, like a human being, and she sent me on job interviews, and she got me out of New York. It was because of her taking time. And I know nobody has time today to do anything, you know. But if somebody wants to help someone, a service provider, a counselor, you know, a social worker, a law enforcement officer, an emergency room person, they have to take time. I was arrested when I was a victim. I went to Rikers Island prison. I was arrested many times, and the police just went, quick, name, address. I'm not blaming anybody for anything. I'm just saying if they would have maybe took time, you know. It's so important to take time and take a second look.
What was it that caused you to walk into that treatment center, though? I mean, at some point, you somehow felt empowered enough. So what was it, looking back, that made you open and accepting of help as well?
Well, like I said, I was heavily addicted to heroin, and the trafficker was beating me with wire coat hangers, and the heroin was beating me for, you know, money, and I was probably going to be dead soon. And I think inside all of us is our soul, or whatever you want to call it, and our will to survive and want to live. And I felt that. I didn't want to die. And I knew I had to do something. And I didn't want to be on drugs anymore. I didn't want to be in New York anymore. I just wanted to survive, and I walked in there. But if that intake person would have just done her scope of work, her job intake, I don't know what would have happened.
Well, time. Someone showed you some time.
Yeah. And she, you know, for all the service providers that might be listening to this, counselors, okay, you view your clients as clients, but try to view them as human beings, as fellow human beings, not just a client that you're providing a service for, because that meant so much to me.
Okay, this is one very heart-wrenching story. There are millions of these stories out there, correct?
Yeah, there's so many. And honestly, it's not just service providers, it's neighbors. I mean, if we will just pay attention to what's going on across the street. I mean, because we have girls and boys who are being trafficked by their families. I mean, we're seeing that more and more. So it's that we've got to pay attention to what's going on around us. We've got to help. We've got to eradicate this problem.
Barbara, have you been speaking much on this?
Yes.
What's your typical target? How do you set up and define? I want to help you reach as many people as we can. What do you typically find
You know, prior to 2012, I wasn't speaking to anybody. I can't say that I really like the human race very much. That's putting it mildly. Major trust issues with people, but I heard on the news, on a TV show, about cases in Northern Virginia in 2012. And I turned up the volume in my living room. I was in a very dark place, and I thought, what are they talking about? Human trafficking? I've never heard of that before. And I'm a victim of human trafficking. And I'd never thought of myself as a victim of anything. I thought it was all my fault. Because the programming of the trafficker had convinced me that it was all my fault. And I use that term on purpose, programming. And within 2 weeks, I was sharing my story on the same news channel. And in the beginning, I think I had this vague idea of only talking to people like I'd been, children, you know, runaways. I wanted to go find runaways and help them somehow. And then I just got on that news channel and I built a website and I started speaking at different places, you know, task forces, churches, universities, residential facilities for young people, wherever I could to bring about awareness, then education, then legislation, because I work a lot with legislators and lawmakers today.
What's their perception? I mean, are they surprised? Are they confused?
Quite frequently, people are surprised. They don't believe, or they thought, I hear all the time, oh, you're from Fairfax? I thought that happens here? I thought that happened in some far-off land. Because maybe what they think they're seeing isn't really what it is. You know, maybe on that Backpage.com or wherever they're looking online, they're seeing some child smiling, or on a street corner, because it still happens on the street, not just online. You know, that's not real, that smile. So they're surprised, and then they understand. I hope. A lot of them do. I mean, that's why I do the work I do, to try to bring awareness and education and change. I do have people come up to me frequently that I have victims come up to me after I speak. I've had that happen.
Well, I want to make sure the audience at home has the phone number, contact information, and we want to make sure that you all understand this is a pretty big, serious issue in our area. And quite frankly, I was unaware of it. And I'm sure if you're like me a little bit, it's a surprise to you. So let's take the time to reach out to the group, to the folks, and let's bring this up to the forefront and end this thing. Appreciate your attention on this. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
For all the papas out there, let's stop what we're doing and take a moment to be with our kids. They can be loud moments, goofy moments, dorky moments. It doesn't really matter. Every time dads take a moment to be with their kids, it's pretty momentous. So let's all take a moment to make a moment today.
Hey, did you know that 2.4 million loving cats and dogs in shelters and rescues need our help to find a home? Go to theshelterpetproject.org and search your local shelters and rescues. Go for a cuddle with your next best friend. Adopt.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can stop to make sure someone is okay.
We can warn someone when their drink isn't safe.
And disrupt the situation.
We can.
Get someone a cab.
Or walk them home safely.
We can make campuses safer for our friends.
Our roommates.
Our classmates. Our fellow human beings.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can. Intervene.
It's on us.
All of us.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
When it comes to saving money,
Boss!
What?
Parents!
Don't act like a baby.
Oh, it's like they're having their own little meeting.
This is so humiliating. Be the boss. I'm the boss.
What the?
Power nap.
You were saying. And make a budget.
Let's get to work.
Need a little help?
Stacy, read back the notes.
I can't read. What's it say?
Create a personalized savings plan and get other tools and tips
We can share.
You obviously didn't go to business school.
at feedthepig.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
There you go. Hi folks, Cesar here. Welcome back to our third segment. I'm going to take a little bit different path and have a little lighter conversation with two folks I want you to know. They're here with me from Herndon, specifically the Art Space Herndon. I have the co-directors with me, Anna Schoenfeld and Jason DeMambro. And as I said, they're co-directors with the Art Space Herndon, and I'm looking at my floor guy, but ignore that. Welcome to the show, folks. Thanks for coming on. You're still moving, but that's cool. So let's talk about the happenings of arts in the area, and specifically with Herndon. I must disclose I am on the board. I've made contributions, but that's not why you're here. You're here to talk about the great happenings in the world of art in Northern Virginia and Herndon. So how do we want to start? Tell us all the good stuff that's going on in Herndon here.
Well, I'm sure you've heard with the development going on in Herndon, we're super excited about the deal being signed with Comstock and the potential for a new art center.
Yeah, and for the folks at home that don't know, there's a whole big downtown master plan going on, and the council has voted to proceed forward. Big plan, a lot of mixed use, vibrant, cool stuff happening. So they're proceeding with the Comstock
deal, yep, which is going to include an art center and an arts walk next to the WNOD trail. So we're really excited about that in the downtown Herndon area, and the opportunities that presents for our exhibits, our outreach programs on a much larger scale.
Yeah. And just so the folks know, it's there's the mile marker 20 on the WNOD.
Yes, sir.
Right in that block is where this whole cool facility is going to be. It's
going to be, yes, sir.
It's going to be really, really exciting. So Arts Walks, Arts facility, how's it going to be different from what's there today? I know it's going to be super different, but what are you guys envisioning? What are you hoping to kind of have happen there?
Well, we're a few years off from the process, but it's going to be bringing in theater opportunity into the downtown area, which right now there is not, and will also be an expanded gallery space, be able to bring in more music groups, and have outdoor art opportunities as well, which we don't have.
Cool. So you'll have artists exhibiting, you'll have performing arts, and it'll be kind of outdoor, mixed indoor, outdoor.
That's the hope.
Food, people like food
Absolutely.
and drink, right?
Well, I think the exciting thing for us is when the gallery we're in now is such a small space, and I think everybody loves it for that reason. But the excitement that is building around the larger art center is going to give us more opportunities to partner with local businesses for food, for literary arts, as well as different mediums, all kinds of stuff. I think it's just the excitement around expanding our programs is really where we are right now.
What are some of the things that are drawing people now that kind of will benefit going forward with a new facility?
Well, Arts Herndon operates a gallery, which is Art Space Herndon, and we have exhibits every single month that vary every single month greatly.
And not many people know about that, by the way. I was embarrassed to before I got on the board, I didn't know they had like monthly gallery showings. It's the coolest thing.
And we get artists from all over the country and the world, not just local artists. And we do showcase local artists quite a bit. Currently, we have a quilt exhibit by all local quilters. But in June, we'll have Michael Colster, who is a world-renowned photographer, exhibiting his artwork. So there's all sorts of people that come through the gallery.
Now, is that free, or do people pay?
It is free.
It's free, so. So how do we get people to donate and raise that resource revenue?
Well, we are a nonprofit art gallery, so we do depend on the kindness of donors, sponsors, as well as just patrons coming in and buying artwork from the exhibits we hold. But our website, or if you even come into ArtSpace, there's plenty of opportunities to not only donate and give sponsorship to the arts in Herndon, but also to volunteer your time, because as a nonprofit, we depend a lot on volunteers as well.
I was recently out on the West Coast, and one of the things that I happened to walk by was there was an arts class going on. Someone was just teaching people to paint feathers. right? And they were serving wine and beer and food.
Good call.
People were having the best time.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a monthly Design and Wine where people have an amazing time.
See?
It's one of our biggest draws. Nice lead in there,
sure.
Caesar.
And I trust you brought that to Herndon because
we offer a monthly Design and Wine class, which again is not just your same run-of-the-mill painting and drinking wine class. We do a variety of mediums. We've done jewelry making, we've done stained glass, we've done pottery, we've done all kinds of sculpture, all kinds of different things. And we invite people from in town and out of town, come in for a couple hours, you know, schmooze with some other people who are in the art mode, and have some wine and some snack and some beers, and to learn a different medium. And it's really popular.
And just for grins, I think it's the best time to ask for donations.
Absolutely.
When people have had
had a couple glasses of wine.
Sure.
Exactly.
They're having fun, they're feeling good, and it's the best time. So what are some of the challenges going into next year? You've got a lot of sort of things in flight and parallel. What are some of the challenges for you guys?
One of the key things that we like to do is community outreach. So finding the funding so that we can do those programs. We do a Percussion Works program in Herndon Elementary School and Clearview Elementary School, which are both in Herndon, and we pair with the Music Loft, which is also a Herndon business, and they're both Title I schools. So we like to go in, we do these free classes for any of the students there. So upgrading our community outreach opportunities, doing programs like that for underprivileged children is really something that we're trying to focus on in the new year.
Offering more opportunities in the community for kids and adults alike to get involved with the arts, as well as volunteering and producing art themselves.
Who are some of the folks you're trying to reach? Because I know Herndon, just by living there, it's such a diverse community, right? I mean, all those communities, there's a artist to be, or a potential performer, or someone who's going to really excel at the arts. For me, the challenge has always been reaching those different communities, because I did a study once because I was targeting voters. In Fairfax County, there was over 120 some languages spoken in these homes, and I was like, you know, so I narrowed it down to like 22. I'm going to focus on 22 languages. Is there some sort of initiative to reach out to these communities? Because I think that's where you find that individual, they might be young, whose family might want to support them, whose then community supports them, and then you've reached a whole new segment of potential players or supporters or donors.
I think we do that when we are getting out into the schools.
Okay.
We get involved in the Herndon Middle School, Herndon High School. We have their clubs come to our facility and use it for free to have their shows and do their fundraising. And we also try to get out into the community. So we do this arts crawl. And
yeah, talk to me about that. I mean, I know about it, but the folks at home may not know.
Well, just to close up that subject, I mean, we always are continuing to try to get the word out there, because you hit the nail on the head, Caesar. There are up-and-coming artists who don't know how to explore the avenues of becoming a full-time artist or doing this as a career, and we offer over $20,000 in scholarships a year. So getting the word out to students about their opportunities is big for us. And yes,
and this is real money they can use for their education.
Yes, for their
further
education.
their arts education, performing and visual.
You know, we do get into the schools, but we're always open to new opportunities to try and get that word out to, like you said, the aspiring artists coming about. And another way that we get the word out is through an arts crawl. We do an arts crawl through the spring and summer, which is an outdoor free event where we invite local businesses and artists to sell their artwork, as well as the businesses to promote their business and bring more traffic into the downtown Herndon area and make people more aware of what kind of talent we have in our local Northern Virginia area. And people think sometimes they have to go to New York or out, you know, to a high-paced city to see real artwork, and it's not true. I mean, there's so many talented people living
really
right
is
next
a
door.
hidden gem.
It really is, yes, sir.
So the arts crawl.
Yes, sir.
I've only been to a few, but for the folks that have not, you pick certain businesses, and they tend to be fun businesses, right?
Yes, sir.
That are serving, and you have exhibits at each of the area.
We do a mixture, yes, sir. We partner with local businesses, and they will offer specials or free items on the day of the crawl, and they allow artists to perform or to sell their artwork in front of their business, as well as throughout the downtown area, just trying to lead people through and make them aware of the great businesses we have in town, as well as the artists we have.
Yeah. There was a recent one, and you paint a rock and hide it. And tell me about that one. That was kind of cool.
This is, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
This is a local thing that started, Herndon Rocks, Community Rocks. I think it's been more started by aspiring young artists and parents trying to just encourage kids to, you know, share their artwork with each other secretly without trying to take a lot of credit for it. And it's just turned into a really fun experiment where families are really getting into finding rocks and, you know, hiding places and moving them somewhere else and reporting on Facebook about it.
We try to have interactive things for kids all the time.
Yeah.
So this is one of the ones. At the Arts Crawl, we could have the rocks and they could come and paint them. But we have kids classes all the time that incorporate the arts and getting involved in the town.
I thought it was the coolest thing because, you know, as a kid, or if you're walking around walking your dog, you'll come across this really cool painted rock, right? And then you flip it over and it's like, you know, if you like, you know, go to this Facebook page, post to take a picture. I thought that was the coolest thing, and I encourage people to. Now, it's just in Herndon that these rocks are.
Yeah.
You see it all over. Yeah, we were. You were traveling recently and saw it in another state, and one of our other board members, Beth Myers, the owner of the Green Lizard, has been promoting it. She's seen it in other states as well. It's really caught on, and I think, like you talked about, Caesar, it's just another free, great way to promote creativity and, you know, artist talent. It's just fun.
Yeah, and some of them, I mean, I haven't seen them in person, but just the pictures. There's some pretty good artists out there.
Yeah.
There's some pretty
I mean, I
just
could
on the
never
rocks.
paint that stuff.
And they're just picking up a rock and finding their inspiration and hiding it somewhere. It's a great treat, absolutely.
Very cool. And I encourage everyone to do that. Take a class, because quite frankly, I took one of these painting classes. I used to find that I got all tense, and I'm not an artist. I mean, give me a computer, right? I'm a logical guy. And I would spend too much time trying to get the thing perfect. But what I found was not only the wine helped, but then painting left-handed seemed to free me up. Because I knew it was going to look like crap anyway. So I didn't really care so much. But darn it, if it didn't actually
relax you.
Yeah, it relaxes you and it looks good.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I can do this from now. But I'll have to go back and look at it. But I really do encourage everyone who has not taken advantage of one of these crawls or events. We're going to give everyone the website and the lookup information, but there's a lot of cool stuff happening in Herndon.
There really is. It's an exciting time to be involved in the arts in Herndon.
Well, you guys are in the right place, the right time, I think, so continued success, continued luck, and certainly I will help any way I can promote the arts, and I do appreciate you guys coming on the show this evening.
Thank you.
Drink some wine with us next month.
I will. It's Thursdays?
Tuesdays. Yep.
Tuesdays crawl. And you folks come out and join us as well. We look forward to having you there. We'll be back for our final segment, folks. Thanks.
I have some news for you. There's free food right there, junk food. You see that truck? Oh, jeez. It's a 2 Michelin star chef. All for free, ladies and gentlemen. All for free.
Here we have a panzanella with summer vegetables and pesto. Enjoy. How we doing?
So what do you got going on underneath that plate there? this food is really about to be thrown away.
Yeah.
Bro? Is there something wrong with this food? Where did you get it from?
From farmers markets. They put aside the ugly vegetables and the ugly fruits.
Carrot top, soft avocados. It was all food that was going to be discarded.
Even the drink you had is made from like a little bruised peach. Did it taste a little bruised?
Great. It's good.
The average person throws away 24 pounds of food a month.
That's a lot.
Isn't that a lot? Go visit SaveTheFood.com for more information. Thank you. Junk food time!
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here, back for our final segment. We're going to lighten the mood a little bit. Full disclosure, I asked my neighbor to come on the show this evening. And I wanted to share with you all some of the discussions we've had. And Gerard Biggs is my neighbor, but he's a local grassroots civic activist. He's done a lot of work helping folks, and I wanted to just have a discussion on the topicalities going on here locally within Northern Virginia, the state and federal, if you will. But I want to welcome Gerard to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on, sir. I'm so glad you were on the show because we've had some great discussions.
We've talked about it,
and
yes.
We're not on the exact same sides of every political issue, but we respect each other and we can have a conversation.
Correct.
So, but I lean all the way blue. You're kind of in the middle.
I'm in the middle.
Here and there on some ways. So, but thank you again for coming on. So for the folks at home, man, I wanted you to talk to me and let them hear about some of the crazy things that go on in just politics in general. Like you've got politicians talking about some issues that don't connect with voters and some politicians that do try to connect with voters, they miss the mark. And I'll use Democrats as an example. I think we have better candidates, a better solution. But why do we keep losing elections, Gerard? Why do you think Democrats lose? Although we won state elections here in Virginia, we're going to keep losing elections. Why is that?
I don't know if there's any one answer. And I think, and I'm not a politician per se. I just look at things. And I just look at things just from my own prism.
But you're an analyst by profession, right?
Yeah, I mean, I work for a technology company, and we sell software that does analytics.
Right.
Okay, and so I see where a lot of times analytics drives, things. And they use analytics in sports, they use them in politics. Sports, I look at analytics as being a tool. Mm-hmm. I think that analytics can't measure heart. So when you're looking at analytics in sports, there's a factor there that numbers can't define. In politics, you look at the analytics, you look at these groups of people here, people here, people here, but nothing beats going out and talking to people.
There you go. The human element.
And just trying to understand where they're coming from. And as you said earlier, you may not agree with them, but at the same time, at least you have an understanding. So you're not always tied to a script. And I just see politics as something that's always tied to a certain script and a playbook that you go by. And
it's interesting you say that. You nailed it right there. Because campaigns have a message.
Correct.
They've created those messages based upon a bunch of research.
Correct.
By the same people that say this is how you win.
That's correct.
And you target only these people.
That's right.
And don't talk to these people.
That's correct. But what about talking to those people, whether they're going to vote for you or not, at least find out what's on their mind. Mm-hmm. And so what I try to do is stay out of that realm. Mm-hmm. And I just try to deal with the young people and just try to provide them, at least inform them of things that they need to pay attention to. And one of the things that I do is I go back to the college I graduated from back up in Michigan, And I speak to the seniors there, to the graduating seniors, and because they're about to go out into the world, and there are a lot of things that they don't know. And so speaking from experience, you know, because I've been in the industry now 25 to 30 years, so there are a lot of things that I try to make them aware of. And I also try to get them to open up and to see that there are other people that are out there that don't necessarily look like them, that they need to bring on board just to get a different perspective. So that's one of the things that I look at. The other thing is don't be afraid to fail. You know, because you're not going to learn if you don't understand what some of the things that you have to avoid as you go out here in the world and start working in industry or whatever profession you choose to be in. And also, don't be afraid to have other people express their views and go do things, you know, in a group, like in a group setting. If you don't always have to be, yes, you need someone there to be the leader, but you should also allow the other people in the group to have an equal amount of say-so, and also just look at their perspective in terms of how they want to get things accomplished, because it could be a better way. So I try to work with the young people because people like us, you know, we're already fixed and set in our ways, and hopefully the young people come along just from their experiences in the world that they're about to enter, that they can be a little bit more broad-based in terms of some of the things.
You're talking to a lot of millennials, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so in terms of that segment, let's just talk about that segment for a while. They're a big voting bloc.
They're the largest group, the largest generation today. They've surpassed the baby boomers. I think they're about 75 million, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
So here's my confusion, right? Growing up, you had issues you were willing to die for, probably get beat up over for promoting.
Correct.
What are those issues to the millennials?
I'm not really sure what.
Because a lot of them are affluent, right? A lot of them are walking around with $1,000 phone.
That's true, but a lot of them aren't.
Okay.
So a lot of them aren't. I mean, we only see the ones, and I think that sometimes.
A $200 phone is still a $200 phone.
That's true.
Okay.
But you know, just like any other generation of people, you have the top and the middle and the bottom, you know, of the socioeconomic ladder there. So, but to answer your question, the millennials, I think they're still trying to, and they will. They're evolving. They're the largest group. They're the biggest voting bloc. Probably a lot of them need to start voting now and just start understanding, you know, things that are going to impact them over the next 10 to 20, 25 years. Because, you know as well as I do, Cesar, when you look up, it's kind of like, oh boy, here's where I am, and what have I done all these years? And so they need to start looking at these issues. When we were coming up, the issues were there. They're probably they're probably not as profound today as they were back when a lot of us were growing up, in the generations that we grew up in, because, you know, there was the Vietnam War, there was civil rights, there was yeah, but I gotta believe that there are going to be some things that they're going to probably be faced with as they get older.
All right, well, I think we've got a call from a millennial. Is there a call on the line? Is a call on the line, folks?
Say the question. Yeah, ask the question. Ask the question. Ask your question.
Okay. Anyway, basically, what I was trying to understand, is there are things that inspire.
Yes.
And what is it that you've seen, and what can parties target?
I think that you know, with the say the millennial group is today, as we see it, I think that they're probably a lot more concerned about the environment than we were. I mean, we had to grow into that. I also believe that there are other things, other groups of people that are not like them. I mean, you take the transgender community, the gay community. I mean, those things are, and the influx of, you know, the people that we have here in the country that were not as prevalent as it was when you and I were growing up. I think that they have a broader view of things than what we have. So they're going to probably be a lot more understanding of things.
I sense they're a lot more diverse and open.
Absolutely they are.
Than previous
than we
generations.
were. Yeah. And they're a lot more technically fluent, intelligent than we are as it relates to technology. So there are a lot of things that they can do. They're going to be demanding more services, and I mean, technology is going to have a whole lot to do with that. As you and I know, technology changes a lot of things. So they are going to be able to drive a lot of things, and I don't know exactly what those things are, but you can just see some of them happening today.
So if I were to target them like for votes, and my confusion or gap of knowledge is everyone sacrifices,
correct,
right, to get. What have they, or what are they willing to sacrifice to get to better, improve, or promote an initiative they're willing to fight for in that sense?
Well, I think, you know, that's probably an individual choice, but you know, as a group, I'm not sure exactly what they will be fighting for, but you know, as I mentioned before, you know, you have technology that's going to change things. So the services that they're going to be requesting is going to be they're going to probably be a lot more demanding of services because of technology. And I mentioned the environment, and I mentioned the diverse group of people, you know, that they're growing up with in this world. A lot of them, you know, most of the kids these days are coming up, they're coming from divorced families, or they're coming from blended families. So they're going to probably be better equipped, you know, as they grow older to just deal with a lot more complex things as it involves people, because they've had to do that. Although people have a tendency at times to think that the millennials are just here and they're not doing anything and they're just hanging out with mom and dad, but that's really not the case. I think it's like with any of us when we were growing up, we had to find ourselves and we had to find a cause. But for us, I think the causes were already there. So it was a lot easier for us to pick up a cause. I think for them, you know, just given, you know, the world that they grew up in, I think it's going to come to them. I just don't know exactly what those things are. And that's why I think it's going to be an individual choice for each person in that generation to decide what works for them and what's going to work for their family.
And I read a statistic, they're far more independent.
Yes, they are.
As a voting bloc than any other ones out there.
They really are. I think I don't think that they're hard left or hard right. I think that they are, you know, kind of just in the middle here, and they're just looking at what works for them. And I don't think they're, you know, completely loyal to one party, because I think that, you know, the two-party system that we have here today, there's good in both parties.
Well, they love Bernie, so I mean,
well, that's true.
So someone's got to figure out what that formula was about.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I think that they may change. We may have more than two parties. You know.
I like that. I like that. Gerard, sir, thank you. I'm going to have you back, man. Time went by too fast there. But folks, thanks for joining us. We'll be back.